Midweek lunches should often be entertaining, and more importantly, it should be soulful and comforting in the entire cooking process. Now, risottos really work wonders in a midweek lunch. You pair them up with various different styles. It being so versatile, it allows you to add flavors and explore it. While technically white wine is always added into a risotto, I'm known to go off the beaten track with a great Mexican influenced margarita mix into my artichoke and SunDried tomato risotto. I'm going to pair this along with some braised chicken with bacon and have a perfect midweek luncheon. Let's get to creating it. Since it's a midweek lunch, we want everything to come together really well, and the purpose out here is to cook fast, cook efficiently, and make sure you're not wasting too much time. I've preheated the oven to 180 degrees Celsius. While the chicken braises in the oven, we get to creating that gorgeous risotto. The cast iron nice and hot. In goes about 30 grams of salted butter, and as we allow it to melt, we're just going to add about 5 mils of olive oil, and this forms the perfect mechanism to braise that chicken thighs. So while this melts, into this we're just going to add some sprigs of thyme so that it fuses into this buttery goodness and just sizzles to perfection, along with 6 cloves of garlic finely minced. Give all this a quick stir and let it be as rustic as possible. This forms the basis of a perfect braise. In goes 1 kg of chicken thighs with the skin, and I'm going to put it skin side down and allow it to cook for nearly 8 minutes so that it gets that perfect sear and golden brown. Now while the chicken is searing, and I'm going to give it a good 8 minutes of perfect golden brown crusty textures, we're going to get to now creating the risotto on the other side. So into a pan, all I'm going to do is add about 20 mils of extra virgin olive oil, and this risotto is very vegan in nature, so I'm just going to influence it with a lot of flavor and texture. As the extra virgin olive oil gets nice and hot, in goes 4 cloves of garlic finely minced, along with 2 leeks finely shredded, and leeks just add that flavor and texture to a risotto. Allow this to saute, get to that luscious green color that leeks bring to the entire creation. A minute to a minute and a half, not more than that. While the leeks have softened, into that goes 2.5 cups of arborio rice, and we're just going to allow this to sweat and turn a little opaque in color. I like the crunch that it requires when sauteing this. So give it a quick stir for about 4 to 5 minutes. Ensure you stir it, otherwise it's going to stick at the bottom. Get to sauteing this for another 2 minutes, and as you see them turning that opaque color, you're on the perfect right track. 8 minutes of perfect searing. We're just going to turn these over, and they've got that golden brown color. Give it another 2 minutes on the other side, and we're going to set it aside on another plate and start grilling everything else into this. With the rice well sauteed, that it has given out that perfect opaque color. Now out here I've got some margarita mix. It's tequila with lime and a whole lot of goodness in it. And I'm just going to use 250 mils of this. And the flavors just go right in and absorb into the arborio rice. For me, this is like a midweek pick-me-up luncheon when you're juggling between work and everything else. Just put it in and allow it to infuse into the arborio. As you see this infusing in, give it a quick stir so that it goes right into each and every grain, just creating a very unique blend of a twist to an Italian risotto. As I let the Margarita mix infused into the arborio rice. I'm just going to pick out the chicken on this side so that we get to grilling the bacon, the red onion, as well as some stock to infuse the entire creation. Two red onions going in, and I'm just dumping things into it so that it cooks in perfect harmony. With 250 grams of bacon lardons, and we're just going to saute it and allow them to infuse and release most of its flavor while absorbing the garlic and thyme goodness. A tablespoon of stone ground mustard. Now while I'm using homemade stone ground mustard, you can use Dijon mustard or anything that takes your fancy. The purpose is to get a total contrary flavor. Give this a good saute, and it's time to add the chicken back into this creation. Just nestle the chicken back in with the thyme and everything, and leave this golden side of the skin out proud so that you get that perfect braise while it cooks in the oven. Now, well, I want this to marry with the Margarita infused artichoke risotto, and I'm just going to drop in 1 lime cut into 4 into this just to release out those essential oils and flavor. With this ready, all we are going to do is add about 2 cups of chicken stock. And we don't want the chicken stock to come over and above the chicken because I want the skin to slightly braise as it cooks in the oven. So 2 cups is perfectly enough out here, along with a fine sprinkle of some celery salt. And a slight dabble of some freshly milled black pepper. Not too much because you want the flavors of everything else to infuse into this. This goes bang into the preheated oven, and I'm just going to allow it to braise to perfection for about 45 minutes till it's done and perfectly cooked. Cooking a risotto is always about cooking it in layers. So as the Margarita mix, alcoholic version of it, has absorbed into the arborio rice, in goes some vegetable stock. So since I used 2.5 cups of rice, I'm using 1 cup of Margarita mix and 4 cups of vegetable stock. But I'm going to use it in 2 batches. So in goes the first batch, and we're just going to let it get absorbed into the rice. While the arborio has absorbed the first level of the stock, in goes the final batch, and we're just going to let them all infuse with each other. Ensure your stock is hot because you do not want the internal temperature of this pot to reduce and come down. It's all about even cooking in the simplest form. I enjoy seasoning the arborio when it's nearly 90% done at the perfect al dente stage. So in goes some celery salt, and celery is just going to give it that burst of flavor, marrying the artichokes, the sun-dried tomato into this gorgeous rice creation. So a generous sprinkling of this, allow this to infuse, and it's now time to add in the sun-dried tomatoes. So I've taken about 100 grams of sun-dried tomatoes and cut them really fine, and we're just going to put that on top. I didn't want to put it earlier because it would lose its color and create quite a glucky mass into this. So we just want specks of it to infuse into the arborio. And finally, in goes 250 grams of canned artichokes, which have just been cut roughly up, and it's time to now switch off the flame. The internal heat, the consistent heat of the cast iron pan is going to let it run its last mile. This is ready, vegan in nature, and if cooked in this consistency, you do not really need to overload it with some cream or even some Parmesan cheese. I'm going to put about half a tablespoon of parsley on top just to give it that little burst of color. Not too much. I'm reserving the other for the braised chicken with bacon. Now, while the chicken has braised gorgeously well and the flavors keeping the meat nice and moist while the skin is crisp on top, I've allowed some bits of onions here and there to caramelize and get that glorious char. This is ready. All we're going to do is take this off, whiff and all, and just garnish it with some parsley. Now, technically, you can go right ahead and remove off the chicken and just add a teaspoonful of corn flour to thicken the gravy, but I prefer it just like this, mopping up the risotto as you enjoy it. All one needs to do is give it that fine sprinkle of some curly parsley, and I'm using nearly 2 tablespoons full of it, and it just gives that burst of color, freshness and flavor intact. The margarita mix infused into the risotto gives your risotto a flash and burst of flavor, texture and something new, something unique. Pairing it with the SunDried tomato and the artichoke is just a subtle blend of saying that you can go ahead and create various quirky styles, techniques in making a midweek luncheon. I've often taken a Bloody Mary mix and created a risotto as well. Pair this along with the braised chicken thighs and bacon and you have a perfect lunch to enjoy. Don't forget to share loads of love by hitting on the like button, and as I always say, don't forget to subscribe.